Welcome to Live with Miami's Community News, South Florida's #1 source for local stories. I'm Michael Miller, bringing people together and sharing the voices, events, and connections that shape our community. Every city has a few good men who run towards danger when everyone else is running away. And today, one of those men is sitting right here with us. For more than 30 years, former Chief David Magnusson stood on the front lines of South Florida, from the toughest streets of Miami to the command posts of major operations. He worked at all: SWAT, narcotics, robbery, K-9, gangs, and rose to the ranks to lead entire districts. A graduate of the FBI National Academy, he also spent some time at Harvard. Chief Magnusson also earned some of law enforcement's highest honors, including the Gold Life Saving Medal 2 times. But what makes him remarkable is not just his resume, it's his reputation. Relentless when facing criminals and deeply compassionate with victims. A leader who never asked his officer to do anything he wouldn't do himself. Today he joins us to talk about policing, leadership, and the real challenges facing our community. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Chief David Magnusson. Chief, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I want to make one correction. I was not a SWAT member. I had the honor at one point in my career as a major to oversee tactical operations, where I was able to work closely with SWAT and go out on a couple of the raids. But that's something that I wish I would have done. Hats off to the men and women of SRT and SWAT. But everything else is true.
I don't know how that is, but the things we did leave out, that you have your master's in military history.
Correct.
That's a big deal, all right? And it says something about you that you want to know those things. And we've had a few other discussions. You're really quite educated in that arena.
Thank you.
So one of the shootings and violence has really been top of mind for everybody. One of the sadder things that happened to us as a country is 2 National Guard soldiers were recently shot in Washington. One of them, a 20-year-old young lady, Sarah Beckstrom, was killed. And the other one, Andrew Wolf, age 24, I think he's still in the hospital. What goes through your mind as a police officer that they're out there, they're serving the public, and what is perceived as not an aggressive, officer? It wasn't. They weren't on a SWAT team. It seemed to have been like, okay, this is an easier way to go. We're not going to engage people. We're not going to have to shoot our weapons, all right? And people are going to sort of leave us on the sidelines. But in this case, some nut job, all right? And that's all great that he's got mental problems, but so what, all right?
Well, that's something I've brought up in the past with the recent police killings here in Miami-Dade County. But taking a step back to the National Guard shooting, and not to be political per se in it, my thinking is, let me stop a second. There was those that are going to criticize the guy came into the country. And I can say I don't know how you can have that argument. The guy had every right after what he did in Afghanistan, helping the CIA and American troops.
For a decade or two.
Had you not let people in, I could see a lot of criticism that we're leaving people that came to our aid in other countries and just let them, hey, you're on your own. So that's a different issue. Once the person got here, as you alluded to with the mental health issues, and I had a editorial in the Herald a couple weeks after the officer got killed where they were talking about the mental health issues. I don't want to hear about the mental health issues, okay? Most people with mental health issues or post-traumatic stress disorder do not go out and kill other people. They do not commit violence. They are a threat to themselves, perhaps, and we need to get them help and stuff. But to always throw that in the face of when you have tragedies like this is a disservice to the officers, or in this case, the soldiers that got shot, one of which the female lost her life, serving not only Washington, D.C., but more importantly, serving her nation. And see, that just boggles the mind.
20 years old, gone.
Yeah.
Right.
But I would argue the fact, too, with the mindset that we just brought up, it could have been 2 Metro Police, Washington, D.C. police officers standing there, and the same thing could have happened. Almost an ambush in reverse. You're just standing there rather than calling the people out to the scene, the officers, and then ambushing them, just going up and committing these acts of treachery.
So what is it like? 30 years in law enforcement.
37.
Right? 37. Well, no wonder you're not a spring chicken anymore, all right? So,
and my knees will tell you that if you want to interview the one I just had replaced.
So 37 years. So I don't know about violence 35 years ago, but it seems as though the attack on law enforcement throughout the country is consistent and is persistent, And you have these police officers who are every day, they're just a moment away from having an assault on them. And we had here in Miami, out in Kendall, the police officer responded, and I don't know how many minutes it was after he showed up that he was dead.
Traffic accident, right?
Yes.
The overused cliche was routine this, routine that. There are no routine calls. You can get called for the most docile of calls, and you have somebody perhaps not in the right mind, perhaps somebody that has it out for law enforcement and or military, and a cat in the tree or the animal's hurt or something, you want to make a report and get ambushed. It can happen. The violence today, I'm not so sure it's that much more. Yes, the statistical data shows it ebbs and flows with shootings. And it happened a lot back in the 60s, late 60s and 70s when cops were getting sniped at, on political reasons perhaps.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a year or two, 5 years ago, you'd hear people say, well, we have to change the gun laws. That is not going to matter one iota to these bad guys, all right?
Well, bad guys don't go through the process. They're going to get their weaponry no matter where it is. But what you do find sometimes is that somebody does commit acts, horrendous acts, mass shootings, and you find out that, well, they did purchase the gun legally, or they did do this. They didn't steal the gun per se, or maybe it was in the house and it belonged to the parent and something to that effect. It wasn't like your run-of-the-mill criminals that maybe go out and start stealing, breaking into cars, which I always say a car is not a gun safe, and they're getting armed.
And so often when I hear, well, they didn't buy the gun, they stole the gun, it's like in my brain, well, see, we need to change the laws. The laws are there to protect us, all right? And so, but what are we going to do as far as education? What are we going to do to change the mindset that tells these little kids it's not okay to do this stuff? What has to happen through our complete system? We have 300-some-odd million people here.
Well, there's a fascination with guns when you say to these young people. I mean, how many times we just heard it on TV a couple of weeks ago? Some kid brought a gun to school. Now, they had to have been preached up and down at school and on the news and on the parents. Stay away from guns. Don't bring guns. What compelled the kid? And this is like an elementary school kid taking a gun either for show and tell or to man up against somebody. I don't know what he's going to do with the gun. Nothing good, but it's a pervasive mindset, and now maybe more so than ever with the social media, with the games, these video games where everything is violence. I mean, back when we were young, I think there was a game where it was a David Carradine movie, and you would run down people. I mean, so it's nothing new. The sense of violence. It was Death Race 2000 or something along those lines. I played pinball. I didn't get into these games. I played a lot of pinball.
Did you say paintball?
Pinball.
Oh, pinball.
Like the Who. Like the Who.
Okay.
Who? No, the Who, the rock group. But I kid. But I got to tell you, I think when we're saying it's something totally new, I don't think that's correct. It's been there. I think now it's being broadcast to more and more people, when I say the young people that don't know the difference. I mean, we go back to when we were young, be it pinball or these games, or even into the 80s with the Pac-Man and all that nonsense, right? You still knew how to deal with people because it wasn't all-encompassing. Now, these games are all-encompassing. People lack the social issues to talk. They lack the social issues to even get into a fist fight. Most of these kids today have never been in a fight. When things go haywire, the first thing they want to do is commit acts of violence, right? It's just there's a different paradigm. There's a lot of variables that go into it now that I think when I was younger, you didn't have that. There was violence, and there was people, and there were people that shot officers, and a lot of bad people. And I'm not saying there's a heck of a lot of more bad people now, but I will tell you, in dealing with a lot of day-to-day issues, if you compare the youth today to the youth from the 70s, it's a vast difference. And I'll put this out here, not crime-related. When was the last time you saw, I don't know, 10, 12 kids in a park you're driving by playing tackle football? You don't see it anymore. You don't see it anymore. They'd rather sit in front of a computer, play Fortnite, or with these games of illusion, of BS. They're doing all these things, and they're making it sound like it's important, that they're contributing in some shape or form. But I go back to it. None of these kids have ever been in a fight in their life. They don't know what it's like to be in that situation. And then ultimately you shake hands when it's over, and these two guys end up becoming friends for life. That's what happens.
So you were more than an amateur boxer.
No, I was just an amateur boxer. I wasn't
for a long time.
Yeah.
And then you
did some amateur reffing.
And reffing. So there was a whole bunch of people said, this guy can be fair. Let's give him a shot. That was you.
Well, fairness has always been, in my police career, the most important thing. I mean, you might not like what I was going to tell you, whether it's people that work for me or the citizenry, but there was going to be fairness and there was going to be consistency. What you find too much today in all walks of life, tell me what day it is and I'll tell you what decision this person's going to make.
Yes.
No. You gotta be straight down the line.
I think I found a quote from you.
Go ahead.
Okay, can we put it up there? And, I'm going to make sure. Here we go. We have two.
Oh.
It's attributed to you, so
Thank
we're
you.
going to see if it's true.
Okay.
Policing isn't just enforcing laws. It's standing between chaos and community and doing it with courage even when no one is watching. Do you remember saying that?
I might have said something to that effect, but also it goes back to a couple quotes. One of them was a Oklahoma Senator, J.C. Watts, and he might have heard it from somebody else. This is decades ago. Courage is doing the right thing when nobody's around watching you.
Yes.
Right. And so this was a takeoff on that quote. But yeah, I mean, do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And if you govern yourself that way, whether it's in policing or anything else, you should be okay.
One other one. The badge doesn't make you brave. What you do when the moment turns dangerous, that's what defines a police officer.
I might have said that, and in a number of conversations we had. Listen, you said it at the beginning. Officers run to danger. That's what they do. Fire people. They run to danger. Military. They run to danger. And to use another quote, and I can't attribute. I don't recall where it comes from, but it's not that they have something added. It's just that when things hit the proverbial fan, there's nothing that's taken away from them. They revert back to their training. And they take care of what has to get taken care of. And that's what makes policing, fire, military so special.
You alluded to this, that police officers know how to de-escalate things. The one time that I was in a fight, I said, the guy took a swing at me. If I knew how to de-escalate, I would have just stepped aside because I was able to do it. So I wind up, and it was... I'm going to explain what occurred. This guy came, he says, Michael, your brother owes me some money. I go, I had just been training, and I was going to go in the New York Marathon. I had major contraction in my calf. I'm like freaking out. This guy was a crack addict. He came walking in the door, a security guard was at the other end, and I said, don't bother me. And he kept yelling at me. I said, I'm going to call the police. He said, I don't care. So here's what went in my brain. If I call the police, they'll be out here, and then it'll be in the local newspaper. I don't want people here to think that I had to call the police, that I couldn't control it. So I hit him. As he was falling, he pulled my suspenders, my pants fell off in the driveway. He's on the ground. A lady drives up. I said, ma'am, you have to move. She said, why? She doesn't see the guy on the ground. I don't know if he's got a gun or whatever. So the security guard, at that point, it was over. And I wound up breaking two of my fingers because I didn't know what would happen if you didn't do it correctly. The correct thing would have been for me to back away or move. And so often we see when these kids are out there, they think they're going to go in and they're going to try to tackle somebody. But the other person, hopefully it's a good policeman, is going to learn how to de-escalate that. We see that when the police officers, when we see them on TV after they chase a guy. I don't know how you guys can catch the bad guy and put him in without beating him crazy. Tell us about the training that takes and how you control yourself so you don't get out of control.
Well, that's something that is within each person. I mean, you're taught that. You don't want to get yourself jammed up. There's no need to. I mean, listen, I've told my cops, if somebody raises a hand to hit you, hit them first. You don't get paid enough to get hit. You don't have to wait to get hit if somebody's right in their face with their fist balled up. I also told them that if somebody hits you, you better hit them back. Mm-hmm. Or the next cop, they're going to take advantage of the next cop. I also said, though, once the person's down, once they're cuffed, nobody lays a hand on them because they're not going to end up working for me anymore or the department. So there has to be a fine line. Police aren't supposed to put up with people's bullshit. bullshit. I'm sorry, pardon the French. Okay, they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to be attacked. They're not supposed to be physically assaulted. Now, when I say the BS word, yeah, you could be yelled at. You're not going to spit on a cop. That's a battery. Okay, and don't expect a cop to sit there if you're going to spit on him. But you can be yelled at, you can be called every name in the book, and the cop's supposed to be able to put up with it. They're be trained for that. But you also have the inner wherewithal to say, no, you're not going to get me here. You're not going to drag me into this. You're not dragging me out to sea on this one where I get jammed up. And now with cameras and everywhere, but put the cameras aside. You talked about the guy that takes off running. Well, he's already winded. He's in cuffs. That's it. Charge him with whatever charges you're going to do and let it go. Now, if he's kicking and fighting and hitting and going to punch for you, I would tell him, knock him out.
Yep.
Knock him out. That's it. But that's it. Once the person's cuffed. Because to me, I tell you, there is no excuse for ever laying a hand on somebody that's handcuffed.
So here's the interesting, split on this. The cops out there protecting the community, and then if they make a slight error, that cop, look at what he's doing to him.
We're held to a higher standard.
Yeah, there's no question about that. You're supposed to be able to master all this stuff. But underneath everything, we're all humans. And sometimes it's just that split second.
We weren't drafted, we enlisted.
Yes.
And so I will argue this. Since we weren't drafted and we enlisted, you have to be able to accept you're held to a higher standard and act accordingly. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Professionalism at all costs. Now, that is a quote I say, professionalism at all costs.
I'm going to find them for the next time.
There you go.
You made me go crazy this morning. Okay. So right now, what I continue to hear and to read, there seems to be police shortage. Is that accurate?
There's shortages throughout the country in different agencies with policing. People are retiring. The younger people that, like, I came on when I was 22, there was a gung-ho about it. I'm not so sure if that gung-ho exists right now for a variety of reasons.
When the 9/11 occurred, everybody wanted to be a fireman after that. And that, in my estimation, it raised the status of first responders, specifically with the firemen. And in New York, the status, if you have a family of firemen, you're like held in this high esteem.
That's right.
Is it similar with the law enforcement?
It is. It is. And I would say after 9/11, there was also no Republicans or Democrats. Everybody was an American. And so,
There's a scene of George Bush standing on top of a pile. I think it was with the flag. I think it was with the police chief with the big hat.
Retired firefighter. That came
I want to tell you something. That was a moment, regardless of where you're at politically. Look at this. We are all together, all right? And when he said, go back to living, because that's part of the way we get better, is you go back to your stuff. Yes, of course, that stuff went on. But that was an iconic picture to live really
then
forever.
He said, and those who knock down these buildings are going to hear from all of us now. And the chills, whether you voted for him or not, that was my president.
Yes, no question.
America, the flags flying, you're right. It's sad that it takes something like that to bring people together, but that's the same thing happened after Pearl Harbor.
Okay, let's talk about technology and how it's affecting police work and how we are all going to benefit from that. So pick whatever new technology that's out there. We know that AI is a new thing that's out there, not so new, but new enough. How is that going to protect us, the consumer, and the resident and the taxpayers? How's it going to help us?
Well, AI can help you in a variety of ways. I do not try to come off as an expert. I don't know enough about AI, but I can tell you, like with everything else, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you can see a lot of great AI can do, and if you got nefarious thoughts, you can see how a lot of bad things can be done, how a lot of things that aren't true can be put forth. How's that's going to get put to use? I mean, then you look in the business world, is AI and going down that realm going to lay off a lot of people? It's already happening. Is that a good thing? If you own the companies, maybe it's saving you money from a humanistic and a pro-labor point of view. It's not such a good thing. So there's a yin and a yang to AI. Yes. I don't know enough about it. It's nice if you have a question to GPT, but I would suggest I do a lot of writing. I've never ever, nor will I. I just think it's sacrilegious to start having a computer start writing stuff for me. So every now and then, if I have an error in there, or let it go, because it's too perfect, and if you fact check it, a lot of times you're going to find that, yeah, you're in the ballpark, but it's not necessarily true.
There was a paper out of Chicago that had a list of 15 must-read books. 10 of them never existed. And if I put in, when I do research, if I put in a capital C and N, like community newspapers, the ones that have that name come up. If it's a small c and a small n, just that little difference, it'll just spit out names of papers that do not exist. All right. So forever, the people thinking of that are going to get you will get caught somewhere, and then you pay the consequences of the people that are reading that. All right?
It's like writing a thesis. There was a computer-generated program called Turnitin, and the professors would run it in there, and it was a good computer program. It would pick up on plagiarism and stuff. So you will get caught ultimately, and your reputation gets shattered for what? I still hearken back to the high school days and the college days where you go to the reference section in the library, you go through the card catalog, you find what you're looking for, you know what the Dewey Decimal System is, and you research.
Yes.
I mean, okay, it's gotten easier with the Google and the computer. It could set you, even as going as far as Wikipedia. Well, listen, it is what it is, but go to the back in the bibliography. Where did people get these information? And some are pretty well books. You go to their bibliographies and you work your way back to primary sources. You can actually find, or it'll help you locate who originally said A, B, and C, or signed this declaration, whatever the case is, and you go straight to the primary source. That is rather interesting. Yep. So don't discount Wikipedia.
Yes. We get a lot of information from there. About 2 years ago, we did a story. I get a call, and the guy says that we got it wrong. I said, how's that? Well, I said, we got the report from the police department, and they reviewed it before they released to us. He said, well, that was wrong. So I said, so what do you want me to do? How far back? Well, the probation officer didn't quite tell the whole truth. I go, so you want me to, how far back do you want me to go? Mm-hmm. And so all those things are really, very interesting on who's going to be the author of those stories that are appearing now, right? Because if you study AI, you'll start to see some phrases, and a lot of the people that are writing a lot, they may say AI assisted, but human intervention. But at the end of the day, it better be correct, because if it's not, and then they can call you out on it. There's no question about that. Some lawyers got into trouble. They were quoting cases that didn't exist. So,
and 10 years ago, these same lawyers would have went through the journals,
yes,
would have researched, and I think a lot of it deals with a certain laziness. There's nothing better to research, and then somebody wants to hold your feet to the fire. Go, yeah, but you know what? This attorney said in this court case on this date under Judge this, because you did your homework. They're going to step down and go, oh, never mind.
Yes. Let's talk about mental health calls when police and firemen and others get calls, and it's known that the guy has a problem, or perhaps you go on the scene and the guy's maybe schizophrenic, or maybe he's just depressed, not just depressed, or maybe he's manic, maybe he's on drugs, which, the drugs and mental health, it's all together. So as a police officer with 37 years experience, what goes on in the officer's mind when they show up and here's this guy? And there was a case here in Miami where I think it was an autistic kid who was laying out in the street, and the caretaker was there, sort of protecting.
It was North Miami,
yep,
back about a decade ago, and the guy had a toy car in his hand.
Yeah, somebody got shot, I remember right.
Yeah,
was he
the
killed?
caretaker, no, thankfully no.
So we have all that stuff that's going on, but let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about mental health for the officers. This stress is every day, all the time. How do you get to the place to where you can handle it and you know how to stay well?
Well, that's something that Robert Asensio and we were discussing constantly, and he's still doing his show and taking it to an entirely new level. But we were doing the Vets and Badges, which was a spinoff from the silent struggle, and we talked about the first responders, police, military. Vets and Badges is the crises that military and police are going through, and the bottom line and everything was to ask for assistance as you need to, and for those that work with the soldiers, the Marines, the police, if they see something on somebody, sit down with them. It has to be an open-minded also organization that there's no stigma, because there's a stigma of getting mental health. But if you're in a law enforcement, and the first episode we did with the silent struggle, we had Miami Police Chief Manny Morales here, who came out in a great deal of bravery and openness, said that he monthly he goes for just a quote-unquote checkup, see how everything's going. That's strength, and that's you're changing the paradigm. Police, and we've had homicide detectives, them more than most, but I've seen things, most cops that are worth their weight in salt that have been on the street any given time going to calls. They see things that most people will never see nor will ever want to see. And you go on right after you see something, a kid dead, or not even nefarious related, maybe a kid with SIDS, a baby. It takes its toll. And now you're on to the next call. You don't process it. There's nothing more harrowing than a baby that just died, natural causes or not. You're sitting there and you internalize it.
I was talking to his doctor. He says that's one of their hardest parts is they could be doing CPR on somebody. Okay, patient, then you got to go to your next call. And you're there. Hey, how are you today? Everything's good. You're going to be going home. And most of us in business don't deal with that. Maybe our own personal stuff, but we're not exposed to that because you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. Well said. You know that, and you don't process it. If you could process it, and sometimes it does. Sometimes it comes all of a sudden, and there's where the issues come in, where it's overwhelming. If you can process it one at a time, I think it's far better than everything caving in on you all at once for all the things you didn't address back then.
You know, and as far as mental health, sometimes people say, well, the trauma that person went through wasn't such a big deal. This is a really big. That's not the case. With the trauma is to you. And
That's correct. It's in the eyes of the beholder.
Yes. And we know with Hurricane Andrew, some people were traumatized, other people weren't. Some people 30 years later, when a storm's coming, you know what? I'm right back there. Right? So I just can't fathom what that would be like if you're in a shootout and you realize that, you know, you could be gone in a matter of seconds.
Well, with the shootings, when you're in the shooting or something, if you have a discharge or in a shooting or something that's what would be perceived as very traumatic, there's avenues that you will be sent to go to speak to a healthcare professional to make sure everything's on track. And that does help. But it's also something that should maybe, for people, if they need it, if they're honest with themselves, continue on with that. Talk to somebody. I've never ran across anybody, and being straightforward, honest, that spoke to a healthcare professional, mental health care professional, that said they felt worse after talking to him or her than they did before they went in. I've never heard that. Oh, it was a big mistake. You don't hear that.
Right.
You don't hear that.
I was a professional therapist receiver for years, because it's like when you go to the gym, you have people that are overweight, and then you have most of the people in really good shape, but they keep going back to stay and feel good, right? They don't, and when they stop, they go, oh, you know, I feel wonderful. No, you got to go to keep feeling better.
But that requires an open mind and an acceptance to the benefits of mental health care.
And we had an officer that was killed in Kendall a few weeks ago. He was, people have used the word ambush, but he was murdered, and it was terrible. The bad guy got a hold of his gun, got the policeman's gun, killed him, then went and killed himself. And there was quite a showing at, I don't know how many people, but thousands of people. This stuff is striking home more and more often. And I don't know how a young person, 19 to 25, says, listen, I want to go do that. But there's something about people that want to serve as first responders that they enjoy it, they want to do that, they want to help people, and they want to serve. It's not just South Miami or Coral Gables in Miami. You're serving the state and subsequently everywhere else. So why did you first go into law enforcement?
You know, not to beat an old cliche, a very worn old cliche that you read everywhere on a police car, but to protect and serve. I thought there could be some excitement out of it, and maybe at 22 is because I loved Hill Street Blues back then. NYPD Blue hadn't come on yet. I said, this would be great. And you know, that's Hollywood and stuff, but the policing job, the beauty of it is it can be as exciting as you want to make it. I was a pretty darn good street cop before I went to robbery and did undercover things. and you get out there and you look for things. You don't walk by them, and you find them. You get into your foot chases. You get into your fights. You get into your wrestling matches. You make big arrests on the street. You have a good connection with the homicide or the assault unit that say, hey, listen, we're looking for John Doe. This is where he's last seen. Can you shake the bushes, see what you can find, help us out a little bit? Yeah, later on the day, we bring them up to homicide. That's a feather in the cap. I had the honor of riding, cross-trained, and ride with Miami-Dade County Robbery Intervention Detail. RID, phenomenal. Great bunch of men and women. I had a wonderful time. So on the flip side of police work, there's also, you would call the desk jockeys, right? But you need them. You need them. You need the people that are so proficient administratively to keep the ship afloat, right? While the crew is out there on the deck. And that's the beauty of it. When I ascended finally and made it my last section command was over in personnel. And I said, before that, I don't want to call it that. What do you know? It turned out to be a phenomenal place, a lot of learning, made me more well-rounded, and gave me a nice kickstart into the 2 areas I was chief of police.
I had the pleasure a couple times going on police calls, including serving as some bench warrants. And I went out, and you realize that wasn't the movies. That was a real deal. And they would go in and serve the warrant, and then somebody complained that when they went in to serve the warrant, it's at a public meeting, they got up before the city commission, complained about the police department, that they pulled their guns out when they went to serve the warrant. I got up, I couldn't restrain myself. I said, what do you think, it's a tea party? Yeah. Of course, these are bad guys, all right? And you realize that that's the time when it's pretty dangerous for everybody, where people are not quite sure. But if you were in a position of some young woman came over and they said, I'm thinking about going into police work, what might you say to them?
It's a gallant calling. It's not even a profession, or it's a calling. You have to want to do it. And really, you have to want to do it from the day you're in the academy to make a career and try to do 30 years. I mean, you say, I'm just doing this for 5-6 years, and no. Now, if you went on, you say, well, and you end up going to law school or medical school or something to that, yeah, okay, I can give you that. But no, it's a calling. It's something you're going to be in it for the long haul. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be times when you may even say, why am I doing this? But you do it because you got to go back to and remember, why did you apply for it in the first place? And it can't be for a steady income or so I can work off-duty jobs at the Hard Rock or Joe Robbie Stand, whatever it's called today. No. You do it because you want to be out there in the community, you want to protect, and you want to serve, because one goes hand in hand with the other. So often people, as they go through life, they get into different phases. And so Grant and I are fortunate that we recognize what we do. It is become our responsibility. Not just we just do it because, no, this is way above a need. No, this is what we do is very important to us, and it's very important to the people that consume our content. They may not know how important it is, but we, and you worked in the communications department, right? I oversaw the 9/11 Center Communications yes. for a time in a command, which was something as a major. I said, who the heck, I don't want to do that. But it turned out to be amazing working with civilians. They're the engine room. They're the engine room of the police department. So like on the cruise ship, you never see the people in the engine room. But let me tell you something. If it wasn't for them, the ship ain't going nowhere.
So you understand the work that you did.
Yeah.
It was so important. I was at a guy that we were doing a story who makes false teeth. And so he shows me this one little tooth. And I said, and then he couldn't help himself. And he said, we do more than that, Michael. And he shows me a full mouth. I said, you are changing people's lives by doing that. You're giving these people back their smiles. The work you do is very important. And if you're lucky in life, you get to do work that you feel is important and that it is important. And my hat's off to you for spending many, many years doing that.
Humility is important because everybody that works hard, they're incredibly important what they do. You're just talking about the gentleman that made the false teeth?
Yes.
How important is that to a person that feels bad about him or herself?
Yep.
And now they can smile and they want the whole world to see it because of the excellence of one man.
Yep.
He could have mailed it in. No, he's a professional. Same with policing. You know, I've seen motormen, and I never wanted to deal with traffic. I just wasn't that person, and I didn't want to deal with motorcycle. But a motorman, and I've seen just going by on a call, where the driver shakes the hand of the motorman. Thank you. I know it was professionalism at all costs. They are the end all when it comes to traffic enforcement. But the way they handle it and the way the people appreciate it, people want a good work product. And if you did wrong, okay, you're not going to jail for a ticket, but the professionalism that comes with that, I've always been amazed at motormen and women and how they do that.
I was listening to a neurosurgeon whose 13-year-old son was driving a car. He was the drunk driver, and he was killed. At the funeral, the line was about an hour long, including out of the funeral home, out into the street, and it was snowing. And near the end, there was a guy that came in, an hour, standing in the snow, and he says, "Doctor, you don't know me. I worked at such and such a place, and whenever your son would walk by, he stopped and he would talk to me. And he said, I want you to know what a difference that made to me, and that's why I am here, because I felt so good that he paid attention to me." So often we see police officers in a restaurant, we see that frequently, and that might be a good time to go up to one of them and thank them. And I think that's important for us to do. And Grant and I typically enjoy paying for their lunch without them knowing. And one time we did it silently. And so they figured out who it was. I was on the way out, but somebody ID'd me. But I think that it's important that we can express our affection and our appreciation, because most of us has, as far as our life, all right, we don't take that risk. It's just, it's too much for us. So my hat's off to you and to your family for putting up with your stuff.
Family, let me tell you something, they're the unsung heroes as well in a law enforcement officer's life. They put up with a lot of things. The hours, the different shifts, the autumn, big event coming up, family, and here comes some emergency, because that's the way it happens. You got to get called in, and there it is. My son was born during the Lozano riots. Yeah, I mean, it just happens. You can't predict it. You don't, and you're out on the line. It just happens.
By the way, and we know, in there are 34 cities in Miami-Dade County, plus unincorporated Dade County. Most of the people that are in cities are pretty happy with their police force. That is ranked up there, the top couple things, right? I know we're in South Miami. I've called the police in 45 seconds they were here. I go, this is wonderful, all right? And so, and people like to be protected. They don't want to get traffic tickets, but they like to be protected. So, Chief, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Well, and it was a pleasure meeting your wife the other day.
Oh, thank you.
And she must be an angel.
She is.
All right. Let's look right over the camera there. David, why don't you take us out?
Well, it's been great being here. Michael Miller, Miller Brothers, Miami Community News. Always a pleasure to be here and speak to the public and just get the real facts out there. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I got one thing left. Well, hold on there. Zoni is our producer today. Grant and I subscribe to the Disney rule, which is when you hug someone, don't stop until they do. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.